So, Zuri, tell us about this mystery boyfriend. He's real, he's just busy. Mm-hmm. Sure he is. Right, very convenient.
They used to call him Proof. Not out loud. Not directly. But that was always what it came down to whenever Reagan or Vale cornered me beside the printer with those raised eyebrows. "We just want proof he's real, Zuri," Reagan would say, like it was a perfectly reasonable request. Like 6 months of a good relationship needed witnesses before it could count. I want you to remember that word. Proof. Because one Thursday morning, the glass doors of our office would open. 2 suited men would walk in first, and the head of our entire firm would cross the marble lobby faster than I had ever seen him move. His hand would already be extended. His voice would sound almost nervous. And he would greet the man my coworkers had spent months laughing about with a level of respect none of us had ever seen him give anyone. By then, nobody would be asking me for proof. But none of that makes sense without the 6 months that came before it. My name is Zuri Lockhart. For 5 years, I had worked as a senior designer at Bracewell & Vane, a boutique architecture and interior design firm downtown. We were small, but our reputation wasn't. We landed projects firms twice our size competed for, and because there were fewer than 50 of us in the building, everybody knew everybody. You learned someone's coffee order within a week, their dating history within a month, their family problems whether you asked or not. Which became inconvenient the moment Malik entered my life. We met during the worst thunderstorm of the summer. A rideshare mistake put both of us in the same car outside a downtown parking garage. We were soaked, exhausted, and apparently too stubborn to decide which one of us should get out. So we split the ride. 23 minutes became almost an hour because traffic stopped beneath an overpass. We talked. Then we kept talking after the ride ended. Malik was quiet in a way that made silence feel comfortable instead of awkward. More importantly, when I spoke, he listened. Not the kind of listening where someone waits for their turn to talk. He remembered things. My sister's name. The fact that cilantro ruined almost any meal for me. That I hated elevators that stopped too suddenly. The anniversary of my father's death, even though I had mentioned it once in the middle of a completely different conversation. What Malik didn't talk much about was work. He said he worked in acquisitions for a family business. That was it. I didn't push. Maybe because I had dated enough men who treated dinner like a resume presentation. Malik never did. He drove an ordinary grey sedan. He dressed well, but simply. No giant watches, no name-dropping, no stories designed to make me calculate his bank account. I didn't fall for him because I believed he was important. I fell for him slowly. One rainy ride, one dinner, one phone call, one ordinary evening at a time. About 2 months into our relationship, my best friend Odette called me after midnight. Her car had broken down on the interstate almost an hour away. She was alone. Before I could finish explaining, Malik had already picked up his keys. "I'll get her. You don't have to do that. She's your family." He looked genuinely confused that I thought there was another option. "That's what you do." He drove an hour through the dark, stayed with Odette until the tow truck arrived, then drove her home. When I thanked him later, he shrugged like kindness wasn't something that deserved applause. That night, I remember lying in bed thinking I had never dated anyone who made decency look so ordinary. I didn't need his job title to understand what kind of man he was. Unfortunately, my coworkers didn't get those moments. They got the version of me who suddenly smiled at her phone during lunch. The woman who left on time instead of staying for happy hour. The woman who occasionally said, "Malik and I have plans," but never brought Malik anywhere near the office. Some of that was scheduling. Some of it was deliberate. Bracewell & Vane had a way of turning private information into community property. I liked having one part of my life that didn't belong to the break room. To Reagan and Vale, however, there was only one logical explanation. Malik wasn't real. It started with little jokes. "Oh, he's traveling again? Very convenient. Does anybody besides Zuri actually know this man?" Then Reagan gave the joke a name. The mystery boyfriend file. She wrote it on a sheet of paper and taped it to the inside of the supply closet. Underneath were little pieces of what she called evidence. Never attended happy hour. No tagged office photos. Always working. Always traveling. Never met a coworker. Vale added to it whenever she could. At one team lunch, she actually read part of the list aloud. Half the table laughed. I laughed too. That reflexive laugh people make when they don't want a room to know something hurt. But I remember driving home that evening feeling smaller than I had in a long time. Something quiet and good in my life had been turned into an office punchline. And the strangest part was how badly I wanted to prove them wrong. I almost called Malik and asked him to come to the next happy hour. Not because I wanted him there, because I wanted them to see him. That realization embarrassed me more than anything Reagan had said. If you've ever caught yourself trying to prove your happiness to people who never earned an explanation, subscribe and stay with me, because the moment I stopped needing their approval was the moment everything started changing. The jokes continued. Only Colette, one of our junior designers, ever pushed back. Maybe her boyfriend isn't company property, she told Reagan one afternoon. Reagan laughed. It's not that serious. That was the problem. It was never serious enough for any one comment to justify confrontation. Just 100 tiny doubts disguised as teasing. Then, somewhere around month 4, something shifted in me. Reagan had asked another question about Malik, and I caught myself reaching for my phone. I was going to show her a picture. Then I stopped. My hand was literally halfway into my purse, and suddenly I thought, why? Why am I presenting evidence? Why am I defending a relationship that isn't asking to be defended? Malik knew he was real. I knew he was real. The people who mattered to me had met him. That should have been enough. So I put my phone away. Reagan waited. Nothing? She asked. No. No picture? I'm not doing this anymore. Her smile faded slightly. Doing what? Proving my life to you. I walked away. It wasn't dramatic. Nobody applauded. Malik didn't suddenly appear behind me. But that was the real turning point. Long before anybody powerful entered our lobby, I had already decided I didn't need them to believe me. The Thursday everything changed started like any other Thursday. Except for one thing. At 11 that morning, the biggest prospective client Bracewell and Vane had pursued in years was coming for a final presentation. Northbridge Development Group. We had spent 8 months chasing the account. Landing it could double our active commercial portfolio almost overnight. Harold Bracewell, the firm's founder, normally arrived around 9:30 and rarely looked rushed. That morning, he was there before 8. By 9, he had rearranged the conference table twice. By 10, he was adjusting framed renderings on the lobby wall himself. That alone told everyone how much this mattered. I was at my desk preparing presentation boards when Reagan wandered over carrying coffee. So, she said, is the mystery boyfriend finally coming to the holiday party this year? I kept working. He's traveling. Again? Yes, Reagan. People travel. Vale appeared beside her. At some point, Zuri, people start wondering if you're just. She never finished. The glass doors at the far end of the lobby opened. 2 men in dark suits walked inside first. They weren't rushing. They didn't need to. Both scanned the lobby automatically, one looking toward reception, the other toward the elevators. The office went quiet in pieces. First reception, then the desks closest to the entrance, then everybody else. A third man stepped through the doors. Malik. For one full second, I didn't recognize him. Not because his face had changed, because everything around him had. The grey sedan was nowhere in sight. The quiet man who sat across from me eating noodles on Sunday nights was wearing a dark, tailored coat over an immaculate suit. His shoulders were straight, his movements unhurried, and there was something about the way the 2 men beside him adjusted to his pace that told me they weren't colleagues. They were security. Malik? His eyes found mine immediately. Before I could stand, somebody moved past my desk. Harold Bracewell. I had worked for that man for 5 years. I had watched him greet mayors, developers, celebrity clients, investors who arrived in cars worth more than my apartment. I had never seen Harold Bracewell hurry for anybody. He hurried for Malik, straight across the marble lobby, hand extended before he was even close enough to shake. Mr. Chevalier. The room stopped breathing. We are extremely honored you came in person, Chevalier. My eyes went from Harold to Malik, then to the conference room. Northbridge Development Group had always been presented to us through attorneys and project executives. But above Northbridge sat a parent company whose name appeared only occasionally in briefing documents, Chevalier Holdings, a private development and acquisition empire with projects in multiple countries. The kind of company architecture firms talked about the way musicians talked about record labels. And suddenly Harold Bracewell was standing in front of my mystery boyfriend saying, "Mr. Chevalier." I heard somebody whisper behind me. No way. Reagan's coffee stopped halfway to her mouth. Vale was still standing beside my desk, her unfinished sentence floating between us. Malik shook Harold's hand. Then he did something that made the silence even worse. He walked past Harold, past the conference room, past everyone waiting to impress him, straight to me. Hi, that was it. The same quiet voice he used when he picked me up for dinner. I stared at him. Hi? His mouth twitched. Fair. I looked at the two security men, then Harold, then him. You want to explain? I do. He glanced around the office, preferably somewhere with fewer witnesses. Reagan looked like she wanted the floor to open. I almost laughed. Almost. Malik lowered his voice. I should have told you when I found out Northbridge was considering your firm. Northbridge is yours? My family controls the parent company. I just stared. He continued carefully. I didn't know your firm was bidding until after we were already together. By then I was afraid telling you would make everything between us feel contaminated by it. His eyes stayed on mine. That was the wrong decision. That mattered. No excuse. No attempt to make secrecy romantic. Just an admission. I'm sorry. Behind him, Harold was pretending not to listen. Badly. Malik glanced briefly toward Reagan and Vale. I'm beginning to understand I also underestimated how complicated not telling you could become. Be honest with me in the comments. If you were Zuri, would you be more shocked that your coworkers were wrong or angry that the man you loved had hidden something this big? The presentation still had to happen. That was almost surreal. 10 minutes after discovering my boyfriend belonged to the family behind the biggest account our firm had ever pursued, I was sitting in the conference room presenting material pallets to him like I hadn't eaten takeout on his couch 3 nights earlier. Malik never played favorites. That actually helped. He asked questions. Hard ones. He challenged one of our projections. He made Harold defend the construction schedule. And when I presented my section, he listened with the exact same attention he had given me during that first rideshare. No smile designed for me. No private signal. Just respect. By lunch, Northbridge approved the contract. 8 months of chasing. Closed before 2. The man half my coworkers had joked didn't exist had just signed off on the most important account in our office. Regan found me near the break room afterward. For once, she didn't have a joke. I owe you an apology. I waited. A real one. She looked toward the conference room. I spent months acting like you were making him up, and the whole time he was. She stopped. You still don't know how to finish that sentence? A tiny, embarrassed laugh escaped her. No. I nodded. Then I said the thing I had realized weeks earlier. The problem was never whether Malik was impressive enough for you to believe me. Her expression changed. You decided something in my life wasn't real because I wouldn't provide proof you thought you were entitled to. I know. And if Malik had walked in here wearing jeans and delivering packages, that wouldn't make what you did any less wrong. Reagan looked down. You're right. That apology mattered more because I no longer needed it. Vale came to my desk later. She was quieter. I'm sorry too. I nodded. She hesitated. I think sometimes it's easier to question somebody else's happiness than admit you're jealous of how certain they seem about it. That surprised me. Not because it excused anything, because it sounded true. I appreciate you saying that. And I did. Malik waited near the elevators at the end of the day. His security stood far enough away to give us privacy. For the first time since the doors opened that morning, it felt like we were simply Zuri and Malik again. He looked uncomfortable. That might have been the strangest thing I saw all day. A man who had walked into a multi-million-dollar negotiation without blinking looked nervous standing beside me. I should have told you. Yes. No defense? I'm saving you time. He smiled faintly. Then I became serious. I need you to understand why I'm upset. He nodded. I don't care that your family has money. I know. I don't care about the Bodyguards. I know. I care that everyone in that room learned something important about the man I love at almost the same moment I did. His smile disappeared. That wasn't fair to you. No, he took that without arguing. I spent most of my adult life meeting people who changed the second they heard my family name, he said. When you met me and didn't know any of it, I liked being ordinary with you. You were never ordinary. He looked at me. You drove an hour to sit beside my stranded best friend because you thought it was obvious. His expression softened. That's the version of you I fell in love with. The problem is, you decided I could only love that version if you hid the rest. He looked down briefly. You're right. I need the whole man, Malik, not the version you think is safest to give me. A long silence passed. Then he nodded. No more edited versions. That sounds expensive. He laughed. The real laugh, the one from rainy car rides and midnight phone calls. Probably. I looked toward the security detail. Do they come with every version? Unfortunately. I shook my head. Then I took his hand. Nothing about him had actually changed. He still remembered how I took my coffee, still hated cilantro almost as much as I did, still called my sister on her birthday without needing a reminder. He was still the man I loved. Now I simply knew the entire shape of his life, and he understood that trust meant allowing me to choose that whole life knowingly. A year later, we got married. Small ceremony. No giant ballroom. No magazine photographers. Malik wanted it that way as much as I did. Harold came and spent half the reception telling anyone who would listen that Bracewell and Vane landed Northbridge because of years of careful relationship management. Every time he said it, I had to look away so I wouldn't laugh. Vale sent us a gift with a handwritten card. Thank you for handling me better than I deserved. Reagan gave a toast. She opened with, I would like to publicly apologize for several months of being extremely, confidently wrong. Everybody laughed, including me. But the moment I still think about most wasn't the wedding. It wasn't the contract. It wasn't even Harold practically sprinting across the lobby. It was that afternoon weeks before Malik walked through those doors when I had reached for my phone to prove something and stopped myself. Because by the time my coworkers finally saw what they considered proof, I no longer needed it. That was the part they never understood. The Bodyguards didn't make Malik real. The company name didn't make our relationship valuable. Harold Bracewell rushing across a lobby didn't suddenly make my happiness legitimate. It had been real when Malik and I were two wet strangers arguing over a ride share. It had been real when he drove an hour for Odette. It had been real every evening I went home without bringing a single photograph back to satisfy Reagan. Some people will only believe your happiness once it arrives wearing a title they respect. Let them. You do not owe anyone proof of a life you are actually living. And sometimes, the most satisfying moment isn't watching the people who doubted you finally go silent. It's realizing their silence no longer changes anything. If you made it this far, tell me which moment hit you hardest, and subscribe for more stories about underestimated people, hidden identities, unexpected power, emotional justice, and the moment everyone finally realizes how wrong they were.